began a series of classes where we came together and started to study the structure for improvement that Dr. McLeod referenced. And the schools that began that in January of 19 were Pocalla Springs, led by Dr. Brown, and R.E. Davis Elementary, led by Michelle McBride. Then in April of that year, we also had 4 schools that were identified in the TSI, ATSI category that Dr. McLeod mentioned. Those were Manchester Elementary, Chestnut Oaks Middle School, Crestwood High School, and Sumter High School. Chestnut Oaks Middle was for English language learners, and the other 3 were for our exceptional needs students. Also in April, we were receiving our diagnostic review. The folks from the Advanced Ed and Cognia came in and they did a review of the schools where they did classroom observations, they talked to staff, they interviewed the staff, they looked at the data. They basically looked at the capacity for improvement within that school. And so we received some of that information back in April. And once we received that information, the schools were able to then really dive into the root cause analysis of why they had those weaknesses in those certain areas and develop their plans for improvement within their buildings. So that was April. Then in May, the Department of Transformation contacted us and said, you know, we're really liking the way that the structure for improvement is working out, and we are going to expand that to the priority schools for the upcoming year. Well, we knew at that point in time, they said that it was optional, and we felt like it was a real need, and we required our priority schools to participate in the process also. And we actually ended up sending our CSI schools back through the process again, and I'm sure our schools will speak to this. But because we had changes in the leadership, we felt that it was imperative that Ms. Hunter go through it with her R.A. Davis team, because she had not been in on that planning before, and that Ms. McBride go through it with the Pocalla Springs team, because she had not been in on that part of the improvement process before. So that's where we are through the meetings that we've been having throughout this school year. And then one of the things that I wanted to share with you with the school improvement process is that the Office of Transformation looks at different factors as they pertain to the school and the school system where it exists, and they give you a rating, they give you a score, and they base it on 4 things. They base it on the academic achievement of the school that they are looking at that's having a deficiency in their performance. They look at the accreditation of the district where the school is located, and our accreditation is fine at this moment in time. They look at the fiscal reliability of the district where the school is located, and they look at the length of time that the school has been in this deficient status for performance. And all of those things give you a score, and that score leads to one of 4 tiers. Tier 1 support is going to be a limited support from the State Department. They come in, they just kind of guide you. Tier 2 is a moderate form of support. And I'll talk to that in just a moment. Tier 3 is more significant. And then Tier 4 would be your state of emergency, which we would obviously never want any of our schools to get to that point. As you can see up on the list there, the Tier 2 references things like the needs assessment that I spoke to, the transformation coach coming in and helping with the CSI schools, the guidance and their plans for improvement, the data analysis and observations in the schools and things along that nature.
The structure of the plans for CSI schools, they are required to submit the school renewal plan that has really been pared down again to focus in those areas of improvement that have been identified, 3 to 5 goals. And then it is sent to the district office. We make sure the budget is appropriate based on the funding that's coming in, as well as the strategies that are being used, and then we submit it to the State Department for approval. The priority in ATSI schools and TSI schools, they submit a special project application, and again, it comes through the district office to just ensure that the budget is built correctly and the strategies are research-based and appropriate, and then it's submitted to the State Department. Now, this is not just an initial submission, because we're looking at the data regularly. Amendments are occurring all the time, and that's not a bad thing. In fact, that's what the State Department recommends. As you see that you're making improvements or if you see that something isn't working the way you thought it would, then the amendment is appropriate to make sure that we're staying focused and seeing the results that are expected.
And if you've never dealt with a school with a transformation coach before, these are fantastic individuals that have come into our buildings, and they offer 3 types of support. They offer support to the principal to take a look at that data and the needs assessment and develop a plan for strategies of improvement and implementation of that framework. One of the things we kept hearing over and over again in our meetings with the State Department is it's really about getting systems and structures in place to support the schools, and our principals will speak to that a little bit more in a moment. They offer instructional support, which involves going into the classrooms and looking at whether or not the learning activities match the objectives for the day. They model lessons. They offer professional development with the staff as needed, and work with the leadership team on how to go into those classrooms and follow protocols for observations and improvement. And then lastly, the professional learning and the efficacy report. That is taking the report that they received in the spring and looking at the data and identifying the areas of needed improvement, and they develop those professional learning communities that will help to improve those major 5 areas or 3 areas, whatever the case may be. At this point, we would like for you to hear from some of our principals of our schools that are involved in the process, and I would first like to invite Ms. Anita Hunter and Dr. Maggie Wright. Can you come up, please?
Good evening. Like Dr. Hafner said, my name is Anita Hunter. I'm currently the principal of R.E. Davis College Preparatory Academy. And R.E. Davis was identified as a CSI school in December of 2018. And during that year, along with cognitive, the staff went through the first 3 phases that were in that improvement model that Dr. McLeod went over. They diagnosed what the areas of improvement were by gathering, organizing, and analyzing data, and then coming up with the 3 areas that you can see on the board: climate and culture, teacher, administrative quality, and student achievement and student progress in ELA, math, and also what was omitted is science. They died. The 3 areas are up there: climate and culture, like I said, teacher, administrative quality, and student achievement and student progress in ELA, math, and what's omitted is science. Once they found the areas of improvement, they selected research-based interventions to put in place and develop a plan. This year, we're currently implementing the plan. So we're going through phases 4, 5, and 6. So in a nutshell, this year, we are focusing on creating an environment that is pleasant, supportive, but also encourages strong relationships within the building and supporting growth and development with our students and with our staff. In the implementation phase of this process, we're looking at our structures and systems, and without looking at our systems and structures in place, we want to make sure that we're building capacity within our building, increasing teacher knowledge, skills, and ability, because the transformational coach that's in our building will be leaving, and we want to make sure the systems and the structure in place are sustainable once they leave. So we're also looking at developing our teachers and our teachers within the building. So we're we're a part of the South Carolina Department of Education Collective Leadership Initiative, where we focus on building our teacher leaders, and we don't believe that improvement won't take place unless teachers and administrators are working together collaboratively. We also, with our structures and systems in place, we looked at our master schedule and make sure that we have a master schedule that allows for teachers to collaborate together across the grade level, and with grade level, with each other on grade level. So we have that time built in. We also have designated times where teachers can implement that reading, writing, and math workshop framework. So they have that uninterrupted math and reading time to fully implement those programs. And you can see our strategies that we have in place on, we have data team meetings every Tuesday. And those meetings, teachers bring their student work, test data, they analyze next step information. On Monday, we have lesson plan review. Teachers are able to get feedback from their lessons. We interpret state standards during that time. And these are led currently by our transformational coach, who is working with our curriculum coach and our reading coach to take over so we can build a sustainable framework and structure. We also have our professional development, learning communities and professional development focused on reading, math, and writing workshop framework to help our focus on that ELA and math focus for our improvement area. And we've seen a lot of successes this year, and mainly it's with our climate and culture. We consolidated last year for the first time. So we do have a school that is pre-K through 8, but currently under the CSI, it's only kindergarten through 5th. And we get another report card rating for 6 through 8. But what we see with this process, we want to work on our climate and culture, and we communicate consistently with our faculty and staff of our expectations. We want to become one school. One school might be in the CSI process, but the CSI process helps everybody along. The structures and systems in place help the middle school as well, focus on the areas of need that we need to improve in as well. I think regularly going over our improvement areas, we are showing that we are still focused on those areas. Everything that we're doing is still focused on our observation, our coaching, professional development that we're giving the teachers is always focused on those areas of improvement. And we're consistent with our meetings on Monday with lesson plan review, feedback for teachers. We're consistent with our data team meetings and our after-school professional development on Wednesdays as well. So we're consistent, and we make sure that's a clear communication with our faculty and staff that this is a priority. We also enjoy getting feedback. You get buy-in from the teachers when you listen to them, and you make sure they have a vested interest as well, and their thoughts and opinions matter. So we receive feedback on the professional development that we provide the teachers, coaching, allowing them to even provide each other with feedback going in and observing each other. We also allow them to go outside of our school and observe teachers in different schools, and then observe each other within the school. And we also have success of student growth. Our map data that we saw that we had students grow their average from the fall. Students grew in double numbers in first grade. The average went to double numbers, and in every grade level it was a significant difference that every grade level grew, and that's what we want to see. Some type of growth. We're not where we want to be, but we know exactly where we need to be and what we're working towards.
Good evening. I bring you greetings from the faculty and staff at Chestnut Oaks Middle School. I'm Dr. Wright, the principal. So the work for us began July 2015 when I was assigned to be the principal at Chestnut Oaks, and it was already in priority status. It is now the same status as Anita. I want to make sure you guys can hear me good. Can you hear me good? Okay. However, the terminology has changed. So we will begin our journey with what we saw when we got there. When I got there, we had a diagnostic review report that I was responsible for implementing changes within the building, me along with my staff. We had a lot of vacancies. We had low teacher morale, not much parent support, not many students who felt hopeful and took pride in where they went to school, had faculty who did not take pride in being a part of the staff there. So once we looked at the root cause analysis of what was happening at Chestnut Oaks Middle School, all of the schools have priorities, like Anita have priorities, but the priorities fit the need of the school. There's no one fit, even though we deal with school climate, student achievement, teacher quality, they all fit the need of what the school needs based on the diagnostic review. So based on analyzing that, looking at the root cause analysis like Ms. Hunter said, the first thing we decided to tackle was school climate. We felt that that was very, very important. We felt that without a climate where people can thrive, without a climate where people took pride in where they go to school, where they work, without parents feeling comfortable with coming in and out of our facilities, that no learning could occur, no teacher retention could occur. So we tackled school climate first. And based on our report card, you probably saw it over the past couple of times, we continued to get 9.5 points out of 10 for school climate. That's where we did the work. Can't do the rest without it. So we looked at all of those things and we looked at the priorities. So our school climate priority dealt with, was recommended from the diagnostic review, dealt with key words that I thought was very important to share with you. Talked about promoting consistency with professional development, talked about daily routine, collaborations with teachers, so that we could focus on high academic success for our students. Again, trying to do what is best. We start the work with children, doing what's best for children, and we're continuing that work. So even today, we're still doing what's best for children. So we started looking at school climate. And some of the things that, based on the diagnostic review, talked about collaboratively developing, jointly developing vision, mission statement, belief statement. And as a faculty, we did those things. We decided on what our mission statement was going to look like, and what beliefs we were going to have for children. We didn't want to come up with beliefs that was just something that we could not support. So as a faculty, we spent plenty of hours going over our belief statements and following the recommendations from the diagnostic review. We consistently had morning meetings where we shared with our students the Beatitudes. We talked about 5 of them. Be where you're supposed to be prepared, be on time, be respectful, be kind to others. So those are things that we consistently did every morning in a morning meeting, and we continued to do that. We got our sound system up, our morning show up and running, so some of those things we don't do every day, but we do it at least once a week because of the morning show. We'll take care of the other parts of it. School-wide discipline program. We implemented time to teach, and with that flow chart, every teacher, every staff in the building had buy-in so that we can say that we're going to follow based on everybody at the table. We're going to follow this flow chart to help students be successful. We created staff and student incentives, meeting protocols, not having a meeting without one of our priorities on the meeting agenda. You can't go where you don't know where you're going if you don't know the priorities. So every meeting we listed, teachers had, or I had to list what the priorities were, and every meeting has an agenda, minutes, and sign-in sheet. So that's systematic with everyone using the same template. Weekly professional development, exposing our kids to colleges and universities, giving more opportunities for that because Chestnut Oak students like the exposure, and we're trying to provide them with those same opportunities as any other middle school. So that was school climate. Our next area is teacher quality, which that priority dealt a lot with a formal and informal way to evaluate teachers. And so we made sure all of our staff, leadership was trained, and we trained all of our staff on the 4.0, provided regular professional development so teachers would know what is expected with 4.0 rubric, as well as Elliott. And so when we came to observe them, we were all speaking the same language. We did a monthly instructional calendar. The leadership team did that so we would know, have a systematic way for how we observe teachers. Every observation, teachers got a post-conference for feedback. Data meeting, parent data conferences, weekly lesson plan, like Anita said, with feedback so that teachers can make revisions by Monday. We also assign all of our teachers who are new to the campus a mentor and a buddy. So those are some of the things we did for teacher quality. Our last priority dealt with student achievement, and those things, according to the priority, was to develop a comprehensive professional development plan that would, with the use of interpreting data, so that we can drive our instruction with that. So one of the things we did early on was we did school-wide reading strategies that you see there. The SQ4R and race strategies. We're currently using the race strategies. You know, I don't know if I need to share that or just tell you what it is, but I guess I will. You know, the race, we restate the question, we answer the questions for the A, we cite the evidence, and then we explain the evidence. So we use that school-wide. We also had classroom non-negotiables where teachers had to put up their daily lessons. They got to post the objective, the standards, and not just post them. The students have to be familiar with them to be able to interpret what it is they're expected to do. So those was just some things that we do, and they're still non-negotiables today. We did benchmarks, and not only just created benchmarks, but teachers had to do an action plan. So when you get your results back, your feedback, what is it that we're going to do next? School improvement team, that's part of the framework with Priority School, where we had actually a climate and culture team, and all of these consist of faculty members. We had curriculum and instruction team, we had a data team, and a professional development team. Then we did an after-school enrichment program. So I want to close with this. So we start the work with children, doing what's best for children, and we're continuing to do that work, what's in the best interest of children. So how will we continue to grow our schools? We're not where we need to be, but we're making progress. Earlier, Dr. McLeod said that we were a target assisted school because we had a subgroup. In order to be a subgroup, in order to be a target assisted group, you have to have a subgroup of 20 or more. So the subgroup is 20, and we had 21. And so, but we're making progress with those students as well. So we will continue to grow by providing collaborative opportunities for teachers and students, and providing systematic structures, putting those things in place with utilizing strategies so that we can continue to grow kids and move our school in a systematic way. Well, I don't think I did that part. I was talking so much. I never did the exit part. Quickly. So where are we now? Okay, where are we now? So we exited the priority school list in January 2019. Yes, thank you. We continue to utilize effective practices and structures, and I probably summed it all up trying not to look at the PowerPoint. I got off beat a little bit. So still continuing, even though we're not a priority school, we still make those priorities our priority. And so when we came off of the priority list, we said progress is our priority because we're continuing to do the work. We have improved staff morale for students and staff. We only have 2 vacancies. Last year, we actually had 1 in one area, which is art. So this year, we have 2 right now. We're very grateful for our increased parental and community involvement that is now at our school. Got a lot of business partners. Continue to improve teacher attendance by doing those celebrations. And now we have a welcoming environment, beautiful campus. So our goal is to continue to grow so that we can, by hiring effective teachers, so that we can obtain an excellent school rating. Thank you.
Good evening. I'd like to start out by saying my name is Cedric McKnight, the principal at Lakewood High School. My slide has kind of the same format. We're going to talk about climate and culture, teacher administrator quality, student achievement, and student progress in ELA and math. culture in the high school level is very, very important. When I first walked into Lakewood, the first thing I did as the principal was look to see what was the same as when I was a student. And a lot was, from a visual aspect. So what I wanted to do was create an environment that was student-driven, that was student-described. So during the first month of school, we met with teachers, administrators, and students to find out what we could do to change the culture climate at Lakewood High School. And they gave a lot of interesting feedback. I wanted to create an environment that was welcoming, that was conducive to learning, a place where our students wanted to be. So that's what drove those decisions. So I'm just going to read a few notes that I made. We wanted to rebrand our logo. We wanted to rebrand the school because at that particular time, we thought it was necessary. From the aesthetics in the building to the aesthetics in the media center to some of the things that were taking place within our gymnasium area. So that was a big part of that climate push. We also had to address the culture piece, the student perception of teachers. And after meeting with students and collecting that data, we were able to put some things in place. So I want to talk about some of those successes that went along with the culture and climate piece or bullet. Students shared that they wanted to be celebrated for their achievements. So in return, we started to honor them at every quarter with the honor roll celebration. Part of our vision is academic excellence. I shared that Thank you. That was simple enough. Yeah. The next thing was just talking and touching on our vision, which was academic excellence. I can remember the first year when students got their report cards, we kind of stood in the bus area, and I always asked the question, the first thing I ask is, how are your grades? And I can remember kids taking their report cards and they were embarrassed at the grades that they were taking home. And I vividly remember this year as administrators were standing on the halls, we asked, hey, how did you do? And we didn't even have to get the whole sentence out because kids were running with their report cards because they were excited, because they knew that there was something that was coming with a celebration. So we're trying to change the culture and the mentality and promote that academics is not the only thing, it's everything. Being a priority school, that was year 2, a family environment within Lakewood, because I think that's how you're going to move kids, is when you have a team of people who have bought in, like Dr. Wright said, and Ms. Hunter, to your vision of bringing everyone together. So on every Friday at a football game, we host a faculty tailgate. I do the honors of cooking to show my staff that I'm going to support them. You know, if we're going to ask them to come, I'm going to do the honor of cooking and making sure that we take care of them. But also following that tailgate, we all go over to the game and just kind of fellowship and watch the game together. That's become a Lakewood tradition just in 2 years. And also for our students, we purchased TVs that we receive with our priority funds, because on those TVs, my vision was to give them positive messages every day that they walk into Lakewood High School. So every morning, we have those TVs tuned in with important information, positive motivational messages. And then just recently on Shadow Day, we had a student from the middle school come over from Furman, and she created a PowerPoint with every senior who's been accepted into college or in the military that we play for them throughout the day. Because I believe in the small wins, and we have a bigger picture, but we have to celebrate the small things first. Next, we have teacher and administrator quality. Every school in the state has to follow the South Carolina Teaching Standards 4.0 rubric when evaluating teachers. That's no different at Lakewood. We also have implemented instructional strolls where the admin team works collaboratively, and we split up into groups and we go observe identified teachers. Once we're done with those observations, we go back, we debrief, and we provide feedback to those teachers, because our end goal is quality instruction so that our students are learning and effectively. Also part of the teacher and administrative quality, we focus on feedback. Feedback is very important for teachers. If you go into a classroom, I've asked all administrators, I think I have a copy of it in here, we leave them a nice postcard. And I always tell them that you leave them positive feedback. If you need to have a conversation after school hours, also leave that in there as well. But it makes a teacher feel good when you leave them that note. and the students get to see that as well. Every Friday, because we have late start, we've implemented professional development opportunities. We take advantage of that hour every Friday, and we have professional learning rotations twice out of the month. And then the other 2 Fridays, we host common planning so that those teachers do have time to work together, to build assessments, to common plan their lessons, and just have that time to discuss what's best for our students. I was excited because at Lakewood, we did have a fully certified staff, and I think that that's important. If we're looking for kids to make gains, if we want kids to continue to learn, we have to have certified people in place to make sure that that job is being done. My goal is to retain all my teachers. That's why I do things like the tailgate. I do things like writing notes. You know, somebody asked me, are you gonna write 55 notes to your teachers? I'm gonna write 55 notes to my teachers, because to me, that little small gesture goes a long way. Next, we're gonna talk about student achievement and student progress in ELA and math. When I first came to Lakewood, my thing was to look at the data, how our kids performing in comparison to other school districts, to other high schools, because to me, that's what drives your instruction and how you plan and how you address different issues in the building. So when I came in, Avid had just been rolled out, and by the way, Avid is great, and it's worked miracles at Lakewood, and I'll share that in just a minute. But Avid had just been implemented, and those kids were identified from the middle school. Now, for the 18-19 school year, our EOC data was a 40% pass rate for Lakewood High School. After reviewing the data in the first year of Avid, these were the scores that I'd like to share with you. And by the way, these are year-long classes, so our kids stayed in these classes year-long for English and math. Our English class had a 92.3% pass rate. Our math department, or our math Avid group, had a 56% pass rate. Our biology group had a 72.5% pass rate. So with that data, it has prompted me to believe that with the implementation of Avid strategies, Avid trained teachers, if we were to implement this school-wide, we could probably get similar results. So for the upcoming school year, Lakewood is going to go with the approach of year-long Avid, or year-long Algebra 1 and English 1, smaller classrooms, smaller class time, 45 minutes a day, and hoping that we yield those results that are beneficial for our students. Next thing we did was we implemented the Evening Academy. That's an after-school tutoring opportunity for students 4 days a week from 4 to 6. The last 2 things are FCCLA. We took some students to California this summer, and those students who went to California won gold in a competition, and I can't remember the title of it, but I want to say that that was the first gold group winner that we had with that particular teacher, Ms. Daly. And then the last thing that I'd like to share is we have a partnership with the University of South Carolina called the Apple Core Initiative, and it's different from teacher cadets. When they came in, they said we want students who have a passion to teach, who want to be in education. We're not necessarily looking at test scores or grades. We just want the passion because there's a shortage. So they've created a program to address the shortage. And Lakewood High School currently have about 15 students who are in Apple Core, and we'll be visiting the college on the 26th of this month. I wanted to leave you with this. In order to make progress at Lakewood High School, we will continue to examine data, plan to improve instruction, and we will always promote our students to be successful in their endeavors. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Joan Ty, and I'm proud to be the principal at Manchester Elementary, and I'm also very proud of the fine work that's being done in our classrooms each and every day. We were designated as a TSI school in 2019. This means that we had a gap in achievement between all of our students in a particular subgroup. In our case, the subgroup was our special education subgroup. 3 things I think are important for you to know. First of all, that only children in grades 3 through 5 are tested. That's significant because our 5th graders move on every year and our 2nd graders move up. So it's not the same population being tested year after year. So while we can do some predictions and some data analysis, but it is a new ballgame every year. The second thing that I think is very important for you to know is that it takes 20 students to be a subgroup. 20. So 20 students in the special education category made up our subgroup, only we had well over twice that many. So we definitely had a large subgroup, and that subgroup was not achieving as all the other students did. So the third thing I think that's important for you to know is at Manchester we practice inclusion. And that simply means that we have a special education teacher and a regular ed teacher and a parapro attached together. So at third grade you would have 3 teachers, fourth grade you'd have 3 teachers, and fifth grade. And they pull in and push out services. It depends, of course, on what the students need, but it exposes our special education students to the general curriculum, and it also allows for our children really to be in the least restricted environment, but to receive help with what they need, and for all students to get the help that they need. Now, we do believe that we educate every single student that we have to the best of our abilities every single day. So it's incumbent upon us to narrow this achievement gap because it is worrisome. So in order to decide what to do, when we first learned that we were in TSI status, we met with the district folk to see what we needed to do. We found that we did have some funding attached to this, so that was a good thing. So we talked about ideas, we created a plan. I took the plan back to school and I met with my leadership team, which would have been my assistant principal, my math coach, my instructional coach, and myself. So we talked about what we thought the needs were, why we had this narrowing, this achievement gap that we needed to narrow. So we came up with some ideas, but then we went to the people that really kind of know what to do, and that would be the teachers in the classroom who work with the children every single day. So once we talked and we thought, and it didn't take too long because we jumped on this fairly quickly, we decided that there were 3 things that we needed. One was a person, but not just any warm body, but the right person. So we were tasked with looking for someone who could be a role model, who could be a relationship builder, who could work with academics, who could be an encourager, who would be assigned to children, to encourage them, to help them set goals, to work on some soft skills, to help them hold their heads high and to know that they could learn. Someone who would believe in students and then help the students to believe in themselves. We were very fortunate after we went through many, many applications. We found an individual who had worked in our district many years ago in special education at the middle level, and he came to join our team. And so far, he's done wonderful work. So we're very, very pleased that we were able to find the right person at the right time. The second thing that we did, and we did this for all of our students, we looked at our winter map data to make sure that we had an appropriate tiered intervention. Are we looking at students that really need a lot of assistance, and are they assigned to people who can help them? Are we looking at children who need a good bit, and are they assigned? And then what about everyone else? So we're making sure that the needs of students are met by looking at each classroom and individuals in the classroom. The final thing is training. That was one thing the teachers really wanted, because if you're a teacher and all of a sudden you're working in tandem with a special education teacher and a parapro, your world has kind of changed a little bit from just being the teacher in the classroom all by yourself. So training was requested, and we found a wonderful conference that's called Get Your Teach On, and that's going to be in Orlando this summer. So we're sending inclusion teachers and partner special education teachers. So the big takeaway for this conference is that they'll work on engagement strategies, and don't all children need to be engaged in school to achieve. It will look at differentiation, not just you're going to teach one thing to everyone, you're going to find out what kids need, and you're going to teach in the way that they can learn best. So we thought strategies, they're excited. So hopefully with our plan in place, we are going to graduate from TSI status and exceed all expectations. That is the plan. Thank you.
So lastly, we just want to wrap up quickly for you with the progress monitoring process. At the beginning of the school year, I met with each of the principals and their leadership team, if it was a CSI school, and we looked at the different data points, and we identified the strengths in the building, we identified areas of focus for the upcoming year, their strategies for improvement, and then the things that they needed from each of the divisions at the district level. And what I could record that they needed from the divisions, I then took to the division leaders, and we either developed services to support those needs or took care of the things that were necessary in the building. Part of this also are very informal routine checks. That was a formal meeting at the beginning of the year, formal meeting in the middle, formal meeting at the end. But informal checks whenever you're in the building, asking the principals, how is this strategy going? How are things working with Avid, whatever the case may be, whenever Dr. McLeod or myself or Ms. Miller with finance, any of those times we talk with the principals and just try to check with them and see how those things are going. And if they have needs, we certainly try to address them to the best of our abilities. The budget review meetings happen nonstop, it seems like. We are constantly looking at the plans that the principals have provided and trying to address where we need to assist them in getting those monies spent, but spent for effective practices and working on those budgets and making sure everything's clean. The plans can change, and they do change based on the data points that come about throughout the year. So that's allowable and approved by the State Department, and we just make sure that we've got those ducks in a row, and we've had a number of meetings with them on the budgets. Moving forward, the Office of Transformation is also, I think, pleased with their process that they have in place, and they've asked a member of one of our schools to participate in that team to help finalize the structure for school improvement to use across the state and in districts, and we really like the plan. We're hoping for good results. We know we can't change things overnight, but we certainly believe it's important to get a framework in place, practices in place for improvement to take us forward. So day by day, inch by inch, we're doing those things that we can do. At this point, I know you've heard a lot of information just from some of the schools, but if you have any questions for any of us on the panel, we'll be happy to entertain them for you at this time.
Questions? Sorry. I heard I think two of the schools say that their subgroups were exceptional needs. Is that across the board?
3 were exceptional needs, TSI, and 1 English language learner.
Yes.
Which schools were which?
Chestnut Oaks was ELL as a subgroup.
English language learner.
English language learner.
Okay.
Manchester is exceptional needs students.
Mm-hmm.
Crestwood High School and Sumter High School also special needs.
So, CSI stands for what?
Comprehensive Support and Improvement.
And ATSI stands for what?
It's the Additional Targeted Support and Improvement.
And TSI, Targeted Support and Improvement.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank the State Department.
Yes, ma'am. I'm ready.
Yes, sir.
I noticed that a number of the schools, their area of focus was climate and culture, as well as the teacher and administrative quality. And I know those are 2 big issues that line up with our superintendent's goals for the school year. Is there a cross collaboration between you all as far as updating to make sure that her priorities and these schools' priorities are in line with each other and they're supportive of one another?
Yes, ideally that would be the plan as often as possible. Do you want to comment to that?
And we do in our executive staff meetings weekly, we update on the progress that the schools have. And I do have to say it is a collaborative effort from all the district departments, from HR, finance, all of the departments support it. And Dr. Hafner and I actually train with these schools, with the state, along with members of the Office of Academics, just to make sure that everything is aligned and that what we're providing is also what the state is looking for, and they are aligned to Dr. Martinot's goals.
One follow-up question for that. As far as monitoring of progress being made, is that done quarterly, each semester, or is it the academic year?
The formal monitoring is at the beginning, middle, and end, but we have informal ongoing. It really is.
Thank you.
I have a question. Mr. McKnight raised a question, excellent question in regards to class sizes, where I think he was very successful. My question is the class sizes for the elementary school. I'm sure the adequate class size will be, student-teacher ratio will be conducive to learning, as Mr. McKnight stated, class size, gets smaller the class. What kind of class sizes are we looking at for the elementary schools?
with our CSIs. Well, Ms. Hunter, you want to speak, they're different at each.
Okay.
So if you would, Dr. Ty, Ms. Hunter, you want to speak to roughly your other class size?
It varies. My largest is 25, my smallest class is 18.
And you're still efficient for learning?
Yes.
Mine was between 22 and 28. 28 being a little high for us, but we are capable of technology. So when they go in the next day, we're really good. That is one class of about 20.
Thank you. My follow-up question to that is because of the amount of class sizes, struggling students, what do we have in place for students that may appear to be struggling? You know, as the rest of the class seems to be grasping while we're progressing, there may be some that you can identify that appear to be struggling. What do you all have in place to work with them and get them up to par?
We offer different tiers of support for our students. So tier 1 is just regular classroom instruction, and then tier 2 is also instruction based on their needs that the classroom teacher provides. And with our CSI fund, we were able to hire an additional reading interventionist and a math interventionist to provide that tier 3 instruction that those students need. So that might be one-on-one, that might be a small group, but we were able to fund certain positions to target those students who need additional assistance.
And with ours, we have several things going on. I mentioned the inclusion classes. Generally, that is kind of the larger class because when it comes time for core reading and math, those students are pulled out by the special education teacher. And then the parapro goes in and takes a group. So out of that big class, there might end up being 12 students in there and 12 in the other class and then the parapro. We also have a very fine reading interventionist who spends her day pulling students based on need. We go through the data, we progress monitor, we make sure that the students who are in the most need, primarily for reading, go to her. Most recently, we looked at our MAP data in reading and decided that we have approximately 15 to 18 students that need a huge amount of support. So we took every single person that does not have a homeroom or has a planning between 9:15 or 8:45 and 9:15, and each of us took 2 students. So I have 2 students. Between my assistant principal and I, we tag team it. So it's our goal to focus on those 2 students. So we have about 10 people with 2 students. So where we may have a large class, we figure out a way to divide and conquer so that we know who we need to help and what kind of help they need, and we do our best to give it to them.
Thank you. My final question, I guess it would be toward Dr. Pepper or Ms. McLeod. I think I heard earlier about maybe some results coming up this spring. I don't know if it's test scores or something. I guess with the implementation of this school monitoring in place, when spring comes and results come, and you can clarify this with me, would that be able to tell what type of progress has been made?
Yes, sir. The state assessments will take place this spring. Unfortunately, we won't have the results until late July, probably, or later. But yes, the list from the State Department will be available.
And I don't think our schools were giving some of the strategies, but all of our schools have an MTSS process where we're looking at the individual students. The schools meet very regularly when they see a student that may be struggling to identify what is really going on with that student. And we have as many people at the table as possible. Is it attendance? Is it the child is sick? Is it just additional strategies? And that's what the schools were talking about with different strategies that they're using with the students. We bring in support services. So there's mental health. There's a lot of things that go into it to find out exactly what's going on with the particular child and how to best serve that child.
Thank you.
Yes. Did I understand
They would not be specifically assigned to that school, but just as we asked the individual over this process last year about our priority schools, you know, they said they would be happy to work with them. They wouldn't assign a coach, but they would be happy to work with them in a coaching manner, unofficially, to try to offer that assistance as needed. So our relationship with that office has been very good this last year, and so we feel confident about that. They have had some turnover unexpectedly, so we're getting to know the new folks, but so far, so good.
Did you, as part of this, knowing they were gonna go away, have a plan to, I guess, put in place when they leave to keep the momentum going?
Mm-hmm. Yes, ma'am. Part of the process over the last year has been to establish, we continue to hear over and over again, we need to establish the framework to get the structures in place so that it's sustainable when the State Department pulls away. And the reason you've heard those same categories, as Mr. Alston referenced, with the climate and culture and teacher administrator quality and then student achievement, we've been talking about lately that over and over again we hear, if you get your climate right and your teacher administrator quality is where it needs to be, the achievement's going to take care of itself because the administrators and the teachers are leading the instructional work. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I'd like to address a question to Ms. Hunter. In your overview, you mentioned about science being included. However, it was not much said about the science component. How is that being handled?
Along with the lesson plan review, and then with our collective leadership, we have the leaders that come to model lessons in math to make it more hands-on activity for students. And then we also repurpose our class kits, so students will have that with those materials, so we will be able to teach students using that for class kits. And then we also had the people from Boston come down and provide curriculum development for the teachers.
Mr. Chairman, sorry, go ahead.
And one thing I wanted to add to that, you didn't mention your lab in your elementary school. I thought that was a plus too. In your elementary school, you have a science lab there and a person in there working with that lab. And one other question that I wanted to ask, I know that your funding is not for your upper grades. How are they benefiting, or are the teachers expected to follow some of the same things that if it's working for the lower levels, then it should work for the upper level? Are you incorporating that any at all at the upper level?
We are. We share ED, professional development on the new page. You'll see elementary and middle school together. So it's a buy-in for the entire school, and everybody's working towards, because we keep those kids from kindergarten to 8. And the earlier we know what the areas we need to strengthen, the earlier we can strengthen those skills and push them forward to today's grade.
Thank you.
Point of order, and I'll come back to you. Point of order, so we are together. Any future questions to the panel, you need to ask them to come to the table, okay?
Okay.
Anyone, you need to ask them to come to the table. Even if it means pulling up another chair, okay?
Okay.
I've got a few questions, and then we'll start again with Dr. Baker, and then we'll go on. I don't know what I want to call mine a question or not. I guess it's more an anxiety. I think I heard you all saying that at the district level, we do have someone who is like shepherding or supervising these priority schools, we call them, or CSI schools, and sort of doing that on a consistent basis. Right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And so we know at the district level where our schools are progressing and where some may not be progressing. So we aren't really caught off guard in the spring when the testing is done and the results come back in the fall. we have some notion, don't we, already? And I suspect my question is, what are we doing to assist those campuses that aren't coming up to grade? That's one anxiety, and you may not be able to answer that tonight. But if clearly some are showing signs of improvement and some are not, then what are we doing with those that are not? Because all of these children need the same opportunity, no matter what school they're in. And we have a responsibility and obligation to ensure that they all get a good education. My next question. The state sends in the transformation coach, and I understand these folk are ideal. What is the relationship between our coaches and the transformational coaches? How are our coaches working with these coaches? What is the coordination? What are our coaches learning from these?
Sorry, I couldn't quite hear you. Could you please repeat?
Sorry. What are our coaches learning from these transformational coaches that the state is sending in? I'm a layman. Quite clear to me that one of the first things they should be learning is nothing else, is that empowering educators is a hands-on situation. You don't do it out of the office, you do it in the field. And so I come back to another question that I've had, and I had before. Coaches spending in the schools, and how much support is being given to these administrators. As a matter of fact, I'd like to see the log. I'm told, yeah, we're in the schools, and I hear principals saying, I've never seen them. I'd like to see the log on the travel log on these coaches. What schools they're in, and are they in all schools? Because I'm convinced, and I think we all are, that the key to what we do in this district is centered in instruction and a curriculum that fuels that instruction. My last concern goes to the budget review. Now, I understand one of the positives of the negatives is that when we get a designation as a CSI school, a priority school, that when the state weighs the circumstances of that particular school, it then invests in resources for its improvement. Am I correct? My question is, are these campus administrators using those funds to support the improvements that the state has embraced in their plan? And if so, are they exhausting those funds by the end of the school year? And if they're not, why not? And why have you all not been on top of that? Because if the school has $300,000 in September and they've got 250 in May, something is wrong with that. The state sent down the money so that disadvantaged children would have a better opportunity. And those funds should be used to make sure that's happening. I'm not sure that out of this report I've gotten the answers I need. And so I'm gonna ask you to review the budgets for each one of these schools, review their plans, line up the budget with the plan and the timeline on the two, and bring us another report, if I can get the support of my board in that request. Okay. Where do we stand on that? Will you all agree with that? Yes, sir. Thank you. District level. Coordinators. Yes. Yes. Okay, you have a question.
Yes, my interest was piqued whenever Mr. McKnight said that he had a 92% pass rate in English 1, and I'm assuming that's in the course. And the first question is, was that just Avid, or did that include all the English 1 classes?
Dr. Baker, those scores that I shared was just our Avid program,
Just Avid?
and that's about roughly 55 students who were selected from Furman. And when we talk about Avid, those are not true honors kids. Those kids were pre-selected based on the hope that they would be pushed and motivated, because Avid is advancement via individual determination. So sort of those kids who are in the middle, who need a bump, who need to be encouraged. So my mindset behind the Avid program is those are regular CP students who we're just pushing, encouraging, and promoting, and those are the results that we're getting. 90% of Lakewood students are CP students. So the theory with going to the year-long classes next year is, one, is going to reduce the class size. Two, it's going to shorten it from an hour and 30 minutes to 45 minutes, because most middle school kids are in class for only about 50, 52 minutes. So we want to try to keep things similar to where they're coming from, and making the transition to high school that much easier for them. And also, hopefully, getting those teachers Avid trained will yield, if not those high results, something very similar, because we think that with that Avid mentality, it could be possible.
Okay, and a follow-up to that, I know Avid says they want a C+ student to start with. So we start with a C+ student, we got that result for the ELA. What are we gonna do for our kids that are below a C+? What are we doing for them? And I'm suspecting a lot of those kids might be in some of those subgroups. So, and I'm sure you've got a plan for your school, and I guess coming back to the district, what's the district plan? And I don't expect, you to be able to give me an answer tonight, but that does concern me that I guess we're going full tilt Avid, and I know it clearly says they want a C+ student to start with. So, we got the upper end of the A's and the B's, we got that mid-range C+, what are we doing with those below that C+? And then the last thing that and this may be Dr. McLeod and Dr. Hafner, have we got the results back for first semester EOC scores? All right, now but he was talking about his Avid English 1. But now all of his English 1 is not Avid.
They're not performing to that level.
So what is the result for that? that
Can-
is not Avid.
Can I speak to the question you asked earlier about what we're doing for the rest of the students? The goal is to train all our teachers with Avid strategies. It's just best practice, that's all it is. So what we do on Fridays in those PD meetings is we provide teachers with those best practice opportunities, because hopefully they carry it back to the classroom so that all of our students are getting that instruction. And it's not just Avid. Avid is just a designated area in the building, but those strategies are being worked all throughout Lakewood, because our focus is all the kids. Avid has just been a bright spot. It's been a success. So my vision is to make like Lakewood an Avid school, because if we can get those results, I think we can get it out of all of our kids that are in our building with the strategies, with the teachers being trained. I think it would just be a win-win for all students. So that's what we're doing for those kids who are achieving, those who are at the bottom. The instruction we have to differentiate, but we don't say, well, because you're not Avid, you don't get this instruction. The instruction is the same all throughout Lakewood, because they all deserve that opportunity.
And going back to Dr. Hampton with the EOC scores, since all three of our high schools were mentioned tonight in some form and capacity, subgroups or whatever, various tiers that may be in, is it possible for the board to go ahead and get those first semester scores for all of our high schools?
Yes, sir, that's not a problem at all. We have those scores available. I can tell you that the principals of the high schools will tell you that the first semester scores are not indicative of the second semester courses in their EOC, so they will always want you to consider the year-end results versus just the mid-year course, and I know you do that.
And then you, sure.
Dr. Marnox, if I may ask that Ms. Davis join the conversation as well. So my question is concerning I heard English language learners as well as our exceptional needs students. I know we're focusing on the CSI and priority schools, but I know that English language learners are a growing population in our school district, as well as the need of more assistance for our developmentally delayed students that are entering into our schools. What at the district level are we doing to implement and support the work that is being going into not only just the schools that we're talking about tonight, but across the district, because it's not germane to just these schools? Both.
I can speak to our students with disabilities across the district. As some of the principals have indicated, we have moved into pushing and supporting teachers and students with more inclusive models, because we have found where if students are exposed to the general education curriculum, we do see gains in their performance. So that is a model that we have been making baby steps toward moving in that direction, because inclusion is not something that you just up and start doing. It's a process that takes place. You look at staffing and you look at professional development for the schools involved in that process. We also have a team through the Office of Student Support Services. We have an elementary coordinator and a secondary coordinator, as well as a curriculum coordinator, and they are available to support our schools. They are at the schools working with the administration and teachers, not only on IEP development, but actually in the classroom. In some cases, they have been co-teaching with teachers, helping and supporting students along the way based on the goals and needs of their objectives.
And one follow-up question. With the conversation around some changes to the IDEA Act, how would that impact the work that we're doing as far as the priority schools, the CSI schools, and the work that we're doing across the district?
Can you be more specific?
As far as the implementation of these, I guess the process that we're putting in place to address the needs of these schools that have been identified, how will that play into the work that's going into it? I know funding is one piece of it. Could you speak a little bit?
Funding is one piece, but it's not the only piece that helps us to make decisions. We look at the whole child and looking at the individual needs of students. In particularly, we have found that in most cases, it has to do with the instructional component and how instruction is delivered. That's why we make sure we have staff who are trained and staff who are also supporting our teachers in making sure that the content information that they're exposed to is on their level. Many times with students, it's just about making some minor adjustments, or in some students' cases, it could be major, but most of the time it's about the instructional, how you present that information to help them to understand. And we use many modalities to help them. We look at students' learning styles, and when you look at their learning styles, that help us to gauge how we can support them in the classroom as well.
Thank you.
Ms. Ray?
I have two questions. One, for Mr. McKnight, that John might be able to answer. I want to know how many students take advantage of the evening academic program. Evening, I think it's called the Evening Academy.
I don't have an accurate number, but I can get those to you. But I can say today that when I left, I had 8 in a math class, and we do it for math, ELA, science, and social studies. But that was just that one particular class. And it varies because we're not using transportation. Kids are responsible for getting home. So, like I said, Monday through Thursday, whichever works and fits their schedule. So I can get some. That's from 4 to 6. Yes, ma'am.
My other question was, and this is for one of you, the Avid program, I guess he's using his funds from the state. What kind of cost is it to have Avid in the school? And I know it probably varies from levels, but could you give us a range or an idea?
Not off the top of our head, but we can get those to you, not a problem at all.
Thank you.
I now have another question. Schools that are not SCI schools, but are almost or potential, what are we doing for them before they get there?
I'll start and I'll as I mentioned at the beginning of the year, when I talked about sitting down and looking at the data points and identifying the strengths and strategies for improvement and the resources that the schools needed to be successful, I didn't just do that with our CSI and priority schools. I did that with all 27 principals. And so I have information like that on each of the schools. And at that point in time, that was when they told me what they needed from each of the divisions to be successful, what they felt they needed, whether it was IT, HR, technology, human resources, academics, or whichever division. I documented what they needed, and Dr. McLeod and I worked really hard this year to make sure that not only did her department survey what they needed, we got a list of areas they thought that they could use for professional development, and the instructional coaches put together a plan to address those in each of the schools.
So all of our schools, we push out support into all of those. Everyone in my department is required to share their calendar, so I know where they're at, what they're doing, what the work is, what the outcome is, what the follow-up is supposed to be in each of the schools. So the relationship with the CSI coaches that you asked about, that was one of the reasons we're the only district in the state that pushes in our district level people into those trainings, because we want it to be sustainable. And the information from the coaches, those state coaches, in addition to the model that has been put together, is very replicable. They have really honed in the strategies. They tell you the protocols that are most appropriate for data analysis, what questions to be asking, so that we drive that thinking. So that's why I've had so much of my department participating in that also, because I'd like to see it, us begin to use this process with all of our schools, because it's a very strong process. They, in addition to the coaches log time in the school, like I said, I do have that on my calendar. The campus administrators using the funds to support improvement, we do look at those to make sure that those strategies are research-based, and we have been meeting with them I've lost count of the meetings that I've had over the last year and a half since the funding rolled out. The funding did roll out late. That was one of the reasons that we showed you the timeline. When you get something April 15th, a notice, and it's for that school year's funds, that's very difficult. So the state has allowed the funds to roll over 1 year. So we needed that time also to be able to develop the plan based on the current needs. Yes, to the extent I've been out to schools, assisted, Dr. Hafner's assisted. We've even brought in the principals of those schools along with their bookkeepers to meet with my executive assistant that oversees it, and Dr. Hafner sat there so that we made sure that they understood the budget process. And you know, you can't just easily move money. This pot means something, that pot means something. The object codes and all that have to be correct. And Ms. Geddes has been handling federal funds for years, so she sat there side by side with the bookkeepers and the principals and Dr. Hafner and myself.
Okay. Okay. But you will give us that rollout. Yeah. Okay.
I'm not sure if I missed this at the beginning of the presentation, but Furman Middle School, were they included in this priority list, on this priority list as well? Okay, so where are we with them? Are they off of the priority list, so they don't have to present tonight, or where are we?
We just selected one from each of the categories to present tonight. We didn't have all of them, because as you can imagine, that would have taken a good long time, but we can give you an update for them specifically if you like.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I have somewhat of two questions, but both are related, and I guess it's Ms. Davis first. You spoke of inclusion, and you spoke of training, but what are we doing to ensure that there is follow-through and the collaboration with the teacher taking the lead and making sure that that teacher, assistant, or paraprofessional is there helping and reinforcing what is being advocated? That's one thing, and I guess this is for any of them. We're doing PDs, but what are we doing on an ongoing basis to make sure, you know, we can do things here and assume that they are being carried up over into the classroom, but what are we doing to ensure that those things that you're doing your PDs on are integrated on an ongoing basis in the classroom? And because that's what the PDs are for, implementation into the classroom.
I just want to clarify, because we are not at a place where we're utilizing paraeducators primarily in the role now inclusive setting. Manchester Elementary is on a different level when it comes to inclusive practices, because they are farther along than some of our other schools. So her staff have been receiving some training in how to model those instructional techniques. Where we are now as a district and moving in that direction is to make sure we provide that training before we move in that direction of having our paraeducators in those roles. They are not ready at this moment.
Okay, and then the ongoing, the assurance that ongoing PDs are being implemented into the classroom. Are we monitoring? I guess that's what I'm asking, because I know that whatever you expect, you got to check it. And I just want to know, what is your process there and what is being done and whose responsibility is that?
I would have to suggest that it's a lot of different people at different levels. We want, you know, our instructional coaches to offer the professional development, but we also need the building administration to go in, and if that's something that they want as a school priority, they would want to ensure that that's being done in their classrooms. However, some of our professional development is a choice. We like to personalize choice for our teachers, and so it may be an area, as you can imagine, people are going to be at different places with different skill sets. And so a teacher who may need Google for Educators is not ready for Nearpod. I mean, you're gonna have different things and different interests based on those teachers. So you might not have a universal assurance for a particular training for a teacher, but if it's a school priority and a school training, the principals have those look-fors when they go into the classrooms to do their walkthroughs of some of the instructional rounds that we've done recently. We've focused on components of the 4.0, the rubric 4.0, and then we focused on components of the Elliott observation tool, and we focused on anything with STEM that we've noted, but also principal look-fors, and that would be their areas of focus for the school year. And so we've had teams of principals go in and do some observations and offer feedback to that school principal based on what we saw when we were at their school.
We're also in the process, we'll be meeting in the next few weeks where we are coming together, all the departments within the district, to begin our planning based on the surveys that are going out as far as the needs of all the schools from all the departments. And we're trying to create a common catalog that is going to have every department's needs in it, because we need to make sure we are providing the appropriate professional development for everyone, paraprofessionals, bus drivers, substitutes, in addition to our certified staff.
Okay. Thank you, ladies, very much. I appreciate the report. Ladies and gentlemen,
So good evening again. The Sumter School District follows the coronavirus-related guidance from the South Carolina Department of Education and the Environmental Control, also known as DHEC, which in turn works closely with the Federal Centers for Disease Control, which is CDC. DHEC has protocols in place should anyone in South Carolina become infected with the COVID-19. If a student or a staff member in Sumter School District were to become infected with the COVID-19, the district would follow the recommendations of DHEC and the CDC in responding to such a need. Last week, we shared in a letter with our staff and the greater Sumter community that included valuable resources to help keep abreast of the coronavirus and its developments. As an extra precaution and for overall awareness for our employees, they were encouraged to take an additional Safe Schools training course that is designed to educate all staff members on the threat of a pandemic flu, which covers the definition of key terms such as pandemic, the value and precaution of overpanic, the importance of following policies, the threat of pandemics and how viruses originate and spread, as well as practical considerations for all employees. Our safety team is continuing to conduct individual school visits, and at this point, we've conducted school visits for safety checks with all of our schools, with the exception of 7. During these visits, we actually look at the safety plans just to make sure that they are up to date, and we are ready and prepared for such response to the virus. A training was held with our building service supervisors to make sure that our normal protocols are in place when it comes to disinfecting our facilities, and to make sure we have the appropriate materials such as soap and disinfectant to ensure that surfaces, restrooms, water fountains, doorknobs are clean. There are also specific sprays that we have in our buildings to disinfect the area. All of our elementary schools have the electrostatic mist sprayers as another measure to disinfect the rooms, and 10 more of our middle and high schools will receive those same electrostatic devices by March the 10th. As you can imagine, and as you've probably seen, as we are trying to order materials, things are sold out, and then there are some items that have been placed on a list, and they've stopped the work around providing us with those devices because of the area in which they're coming from. I would also like to remind everyone to make sure that we look at DHEC and CDC for information, because those are the most reliable and credible sources that are out there. There's a lot of information out there that is misinforming and will increase the anxiety and the panic that exists. So I would encourage you to make sure that you look at DHEC and CDC's website for additional information and updated information. One of the things we have been focused on is while COVID has been attracting the most attention, the bigger health hazard in South Carolina continues to be the flu. Staff, students, and families are encouraged to follow preventative measures, which includes washing your hands with soap for at least 20 to 30 seconds, to make sure that you're avoiding close contact with those who are sick, using alcohol-based sanitizers with 60% alcohol or above when you're washing, when those items that are necessary for you to wash your hand are unavailable, avoiding large crowds and international trips to follow the countries with a level 2 or higher advisory as indicated by the CDC. When we cough, make sure that we're covering our faces using our upper arm and with a tissue to make sure that we are not spreading the contagions. And once that tissue is used, please make sure you discard and don't leave it lying around. Cleaning frequently touched objects and surfaces using a regular household detergent and water. And we encourage our staff and students who feel sick to stay home, particularly if there is a fever involved. And one of the other points that we'd like to emphasize and stress, if you're able to make sure you get the flu shot if necessary. As we continue to move forward, we will work collectively with DHEC. I'm communicating with other superintendents across South Carolina just to make sure that if there are best practices or effective practices, that one, we're in a line, and that we're continuing to make sure that our environments are safe for our children to learn. And again, this is a reminder, if you are sick, we encourage you to stay home, especially if you have a fever. And while we encourage attendance of our students and teachers, we do not want you to come to school when you're ill, because then you continue to infect others. If there's a need for us to quarantine, evacuate, or anything that's detrimental, we will continue to work collectively with DHEC, the Center for Disease Control, with the South Carolina State Department of Education, and the Governor's Office. So we will take our guidance from them as we continue to work collectively. But as we've done, we will continue to keep our community informed as events unfold, and I encourage you all to make sure you take care of yourself. This concludes the report regarding safety. Sir Chair.
Any questions to the superintendent and subject with safety?
May I also add, and I forgot a component, we also met with our building service supervisors just to remind them of going above and beyond our regular protocol in terms of disinfecting our classrooms and our areas of learning. So that meeting. Homeschool report, Dr. McLeod.
You should have received the South Carolina Homeschool Report in your packet. The 2019-2020 report has been submitted. You'll see that there's option 1, 2, and 3. Option 1 is under the auspice of the district itself. We have no students participating in that. Option 2 is through the state South Carolina Association of Independent Homeschools. There are 7 that participate in that. And then option 3 are through our local associations, and that's where most of our homeschool students fall. And we have 433 for a total of 440. I included last year's, where the total enrollment for homeschool was 423. 2017-18, it was 441. And then 2016-17 was 409. So it hovers fairly close to the same numbers each year.
Any questions?
Yeah, can you go those longitudinal numbers one more time?
Okay, the 2019-2020 total was 440. The previous year, 18-19, was 423. The 17-18 school year was 441. And the 16-17 school year was 409.
Dr. McLeod, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Do we get any information on the annual performance of these kids who are schooled at home?
No, sir, we don't. If they chose option one, where they were under the auspice of the district itself, they would come in for the state testing, but we don't have any that participate in that.
Okay. I was just curious. Okay. Thank you.
Can I ask one more question?
Yes, sir.
At one time, was there not, a mandate that homeschool kids come in and take the test, or it's always been optional?
It's always been if they participated in option one, at least as long as I've been dealing with it.
Thank you.
One quick question.
Yes.
So their test scores do not affect the district scores at all, right? Okay.
They don't take state testing.
I'm talking about that 400 plus that's.
No, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. McLeod. Is that it?
She has that.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Go ahead.
Dr. McLeod, 6.4.
Okay, you should have received the letter concerning the textbook adoption. Dr. Laws coordinates our textbooks, and then our district level content coordinators actually handle the process by which those are determined. So this year, we had the areas of mathematics, grades K through 8, and social studies, grade 7. And when they went through the process, meeting with the textbook caravans, publishers, the discussions, and then they take the tally at the end. The choice of the teachers was for mathematics, grades K through 5 were Big Ideas Learning, Big Ideas Math, Modeling Real Lives, South Carolina edition. Mathematics 6 through 8 is Houghton Mifflin Harcourt Publishing Company. The HMH 2020 South Carolina Intro to Math for grades 6 through 8, and the social studies was the Houghton Mifflin Harcourt Publishing Company, HMH 2019 South Carolina World Geography for grade 7.
Any questions? Thank you, Dr. McLeod. Next. Go ahead.
For local board approved courses, we've had some changes in the State Department personnel. Darlene Pratt, who has worked with local board approved courses for many years, retired, and Nicole Avery has taken her place, and she reached out to us that going forward, they would like the local board approved courses to be reviewed by the board annually. I've given you the list with the descriptor. I've also made some recommendations, so when I bring it forth for the 2020-21 school year, some adjustments will be made. These are the local board approved courses that are currently active. That doesn't necessarily mean they have students in those sections. So some of them we will be cleaning up. These courses have been active for many years. We don't have recent ones. I mean, the very first one I know goes back probably close to 25 years. In a lot of cases it was We needed a local board approved course because we knew something was coming from the State Department, but they had not put a course code in yet. So a lot of these we can shift over to numbers that are in the current course code manual for the state, and because they have the same descriptors.
Dr. Cloud, the social studies one, this course is designed to teach civics at the middle school level. Students receive elective credit. Are they receiving a Carnegie High School
No,
credit?
sir. No, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
Now, some of these, they're listed specific schools, so these are not in all the schools. You said they're active within the district.
Well, if you see a dot, 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 that's pretty much most of them. Most of them are middle schools.
Right, but like the first two, which is outside,
Currently, yes.
and the Avid 6, is that connected to the Avid program?
Yes, for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade.
Just curious about study skills, how, is that like a quarter course?
Let me think. You're talking about study skills 7, 8? Those courses were put in place many years ago, very similar to math academies that we had previous years, reading academies. Some of it is the differences are due to the different schedules at the middle school. Some middle schools need more electives versus others based on whether they're AB schedule, that kind of thing.
How long is that last?
They're semesters. Mhm.
So is that more of a study out? Or they really teach study skills every day?
Part of it would be teaching the study skills, but then in most cases, part of it is electronic support also.
And my other question is the general foreign language. How does that work?
It's on the first page,
Thank you.
Very bottom.
the bottom.
I see. The one at Hillcrest Middle School, that is just introductory phrases, culture, history, very beginner conversational dialogue. This happened to be a teacher that had that experience. So Hillcrest schedule also provided a need for a particular elective, and that's the one they chose to use. I think it's German, French, and Italian are the three that, I think that's what it is. I'll have to check for sure. Excuse me. It's French, German, and Spanish. French and Spanish. Those are Carnegie units. Those are Carnegie units at the high school. This one's not.
Yeah, I just wondered how that works.
Mr. Chair.
I guess this is a question for Dr. Martin that may be best suited for you to answer. Is there a reason for the differential between offerings per school or grade levels? And second part to that is there not a way to streamline course offerings or the master schedule across the district. If a student was to, let's just say, go from Ebenezer to Furman, but there could potentially be a difference between how their schedule would look.
That is correct. And the courses, many of the courses that Dr. McLeod just spoke of, they're added to the schedule because there is a difference in the schedules. There are some schools that use a block schedule, and there are some that are on a 45-minute period schedule where they're having 7 periods, and one has 6 periods, but that is work that we've actually talked about in terms of moving forward to streamline, because what we don't want are variances when children transfer from school to school within the district. But you'll see the variance in the schedules at our middle level.
So, you started out by saying that the lady retired, we got a new lady that wants us to review these every year.
Yes, sir.
Then you made a comment about the PE Health 6 had been there for years and years.
Yes, sir.
All right, so my question is, are all these courses being offered currently? Or
No, sir.
these are courses that have been on
There's,
in the catalog?
Correct.
Some of them have been there for a long time, nobody's taken them for a long time. Is that?
yes,
a
they
fair
are still
statement?
showing active in our Power School database.
Okay.
And that's why you'll see the recommendations
To
for,
remove certain things.
yes,
But some of these courses are being offered, and kids are sitting in there
yes, sir.
learning in these classes,
Yes, sir.
but others are not.
That's correct.
Okay, so this needs to be cleaned up
Yes, sir.
and
Absolutely.
shrunk,
I agree.
reduced. Okay, thank you for that clarification.
Well, you gave me
That, what Dr. Hill just asked me to clarify my question, because I've noticed, Avid 1, I see, Lakewood, Crestwood, and then when I see Avid 2, 3, and 4, I see Lakewood High and Sumter High. But I don't see Crestwood, so I guess my question is, and like I said, the previous question may help what Dr. Hill just asked, but I was just wondering, Avid 2, 3, 4 offered to Crestwood?
Crestwood is coming on with the Avid program this year, so this year they will only have Avid 1. As the students roll up, we'll add the other ones for them.
I just wanted you to clarify what you just said about the scheduling. We do have a middle school that does AD scheduling, and you said some do 90-minute blocks and stuff like that. So did you say that we're trying to get them all the same, is that, or did I misunderstand?
No, you didn't misunderstand. We're actually looking to move forward next year to engaging our middle school or middle level leaders in a discussion about schedules and the one that's most conducive to learning, because they're using the schedules that best meets the needs of their children. So it's before we go and say every middle school will have this particular schedule, we just need to make sure that we're meeting the needs of each student population. But we also need to address the issue if we have students that are mobile, and they're going from school to school. We want to minimize the disruptions that they may experience, because it would be very difficult for a student who's now exposed to a schedule where they have 7 classes at 45 minutes per period, to then go to another school where they're offering 4 classes at 90 minutes every other day or every day. So we are going to be looking at that work and moving forward.
Okay. Questions? I think you finally finished. We appreciate it.
So good evening again. As we share the successes of our school district, I want to first and foremost take the opportunity to thank Principal Campbell, not only for hosting our board meeting this evening, and making sure he extends himself, but I had the fortunate opportunity to participate the other day when we talk about climate and culture. I actually had the fortunate opportunity to participate in the character parade here at the school with our children. Mr. Campbell himself was Batman, so he took a lot of attention off of me because I didn't have on a costume. But it was just so nice to see the excitement of our children as they celebrated Read Across America, and we celebrated the birthday of Dr. Seuss. So I just wanted to publicly thank you and your staff for what it is that you do for children each and every day, and for what you do as a leader. So thank you. The National Merit Finalists, we want to take the opportunity to congratulate our very own Andrea Clark, an International Baccalaureate Full Diploma candidate from Sumter High School, for being named a National Merit Finalist. This academically talented high school student will move on to compete for one of 7,500 National Merit Scholarships worth about $32 million that will be offered this spring. So please make sure when you see her, you congratulate her, because this is actually very prestigious, and we're proud to say she's our very own Sumter School District student. For our very own Chestnut Oaks, they were awarded $10,000 in a grant. So I just wanted to commend you for the work that you are doing. The Mockingbird Foundation awarded a $10,000 grant to Chestnut Oaks Middle School's band director, Mr. Cornelius Blanding, to support the instrument purchases and repairs for their band program. The Mockingbird Foundation, an all-volunteer nonprofit founded and run entirely by the Fish Fans, has announced 20 new grants totaling $141,263 in support of music education for our children. So again, congratulations to you and to Mr. Blanding for the work that you all do as well. South Carolina School Improvement Council is pleased to announce that our very own Millwood Elementary School Improvement Council is one of 5 local school improvement councils from across the state to be named a finalist for the 2020 Dick and Tunky Riley Award. An independent panel of outside judges will review the finalists' applications and portfolios in the coming weeks and select the winner of this year's Riley Award. So please keep our very own Millwood with your fingers and your toes and your elbows crossed that they come out on top. We talked about the Sumter Career and Technology Center, and I just want to commend you again, Dr. Miller and your team, for the work that you are doing in terms of the SREB and making sure that we prepare our children for college, career, military, and for workforce. So thank you for the work that you do each and every day at our Sumter Career and Technology Center, you and your staff. And finally, all employees are invited to attend Community Broadcasters Annual Education Appreciation Night this Tuesday, March 24th from 5:30 to 8 p.m. at the USC Nettles Auditorium. A wonderful evening will be filled with food, door prizes, and entertainment will be had by all. All 2019-20 Teachers of the Year will be recognized at this time, and so we want to say thank you to our community broadcasters and all of the vendors and sponsors who make this event special for our employees. This concludes the superintendent's report for the evening. Sir Chair.
Thank you, Madam Superintendent, for your report, and thank you, staff, for the support that you give to the superintendent. Item 7, executive session. What's your pleasure?
Mr. Chair, I move that we enter into executive session for the receipt of legal advice relates to pending, threatening, of potential claims and discussion of proposed property contractual matters and personnel report, employment, appointment, compensation, promotion, demotion, discipline, termination, and or release of an employee.
Second.
You heard the motion, and it is supported. If there's no discussion, we'll vote our pleasure. I think that's unanimous. Yeah, it is unanimous. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming tonight. You are invited to remain if you'd like, but we will be in executive session for a while, and it's kind of hard to say how long that period will last. But when it is concluded, we will return to open session. Superintendent's recommendation pertaining to personnel will be adopted. Any discussion? If there is no discussion, you may vote your conviction. Personnel report is adopted on a unanimous vote.
Board Chairman, please, I bring forward for your consideration the textbook adoption, for math grades K through 8 for the board's approval.
Second.
Motion and second that textbook grade, math grades K through 8 be adopted. Any discussion? You may vote your conviction. It's a unanimous vote. Carries. Yes, ma'am.
Chairman Canty, I'd like to bring forward for the board's consideration approval for the textbook adoption for social studies grade 7.
So moved.
Second.
Heard the motion and second for the adoption of textbook for social studies grade 7. Is there any discussion? No discussion, you may vote your conviction. The vote is unanimous, it carries. Madam Superintendent.
Board Chairman, I'd like to bring forward for consideration for the 2019-2020 local board approved courses for the board's consideration.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second that the courses by the local board for 2019-20 would be approved. Any discussion? There is no discussion. Please vote your conviction. It's a unanimous vote. Carries. Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to approve first reading on policies amendment, policy D8 fiscal management goals / priorities objectives, policy DDB online fundraising campaign / crowdfunding, policy GBEBA staff dress, and policy JICA student dress.
Second.
Chairman's report is a motion and is adopted with a second. All those who are, is there any discussion? If there is no discussion, you may vote your conviction on first reading on the said amendments. The vote is unanimous on first reading of policy amendments, DA fiscal management goal priority objectives, DDB online fundraising campaigns, and GBEBA staff dress and JICA student dress. Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like for this board to approve second reading on policy KI visitors.
Second.
The report is seconded. Is there any discussion? discussion, please vote your conviction. The vote is unanimous. Carries on second reading on KI Visitor. Chairman Austin.
There will not be any action taken on the Transportation Ad Hoc Committee. We'll be taking it back to the committee and bringing something back forward to the board.
Want to make a motion to postpone?
Mr. Chairman, I would like to make a motion to postpone the approval of Transportation Ad Hoc Committee public members.
Second.
Motion to postpone action on the approval of the Transportation Ad Hoc Committee public members. Any discussion? Those in favor will indicate, you will. Show of hands. Show of hands. All right. I think that's unanimous. Thank you. Consent agenda.
Unanimous.
Anybody opposed? Not, it is a unanimous vote. Item number 11.
Sherry wants to talk to you before we.
I rule you out If there are no objections, we will close this meeting.
Thank you, sir.
We are adjourned. Have a good night.